Hello, everyone. It's Jennie and Laurie of AstroPath, Jennie of Hidden Path Astrology. You can find her at hiddenpathastrology.com. And myself, you can find at astrolore.org. Please, before listening, make sure you do all the things like subscribe, share our video with people you know that might be interested. And today we're talking about Gemini season. Gemini season starts on the 21st of May and lasts until the 21st of June. Is that right, Jennie? I got the dates right?
Correct.
Okay.
You got it right.
All right. Is there anything else before we get started? Anything else that I'm forgetting to mention?
Well, I will just say real quick, if you are watching this video, then you might want to watch the Saturn and Pisces video too, that we recorded a while ago, because we're going to talk about Saturn today too. But that's it.
Yeah, Saturn's quite important here at this point in time. This Gemini season is really interesting. It certainly gets started with a excitement, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it starts right out the gate with a trine to Pluto, which is recently in Aquarius, and it also has a nice little sextile to Mars. Yeah, so
let's open this right up and take a look at it.
So first, yeah. I was just going to say those two things together really are what we're saying when it's like, oh my gosh, like it's coming into Gemini season, and right away you have this energizing trine to the power planet Pluto, and then you have this sextile to Mars, which is so much about action. So that's what you kind of have right away.
That is so beautiful to see that. It really is. Like the sun is just supported and empowered the moment it steps into Gemini.
Yeah. And then the other thing to note is we have just come out of Taurus season. Taurus season was a lot went on during that season, but there was a lot of things about just kind of slowing down and going inward and chilling out, and just trying to take a step back and get grounded. So we still have a little bit of a holdover from that. Like, so although this is this lovely aspect that's coming right out of the gate, there's still a little bit of a slogginess to it. There's a little bit of like, we're trying to come out of Taurus season. So it's not quite as fast as you might think, but it is really nice to have these other two supportive aspects to the sun.
I like it a lot. And I like thinking about, thinking about seasonally. Here we are in the northern hemisphere. It's springtime. We've been, you think about Aries as the beginning of spring, and then Taurus as the focal part of spring. Everything is growing, and then Gemini, things start to change. It's the mutable sign that comes before full out summer season. So it's really a time of change. We're shifting from spring toward summer, and at the end of this, when the sun goes into Cancer, that's when we really step into full out summer season. So this is a time of shifting between the two.
Yeah, I like the way that you're phrasing that, because Gemini, like all of the signs in the zodiac wheel, is essentially a response to Taurus, and response is, in this case, is responding to Taurus's slow, stable, steady, keep it the same. And Gemini's like, hey, throw all it away. Let's pick it up. Let's change everything. I want to be different. Comes in kind of like a burst of wind, and it's this much more active, energetic, kind of lighthearted type of energy. It's a great time to get logistics taken care of. I think of, Gemini as those planning logistics, like have the conversations you need to have to get your plan set for the season coming up. There's things like that, just kind of like nuts and bolts, like get it done. Gemini also refers to storytelling. So there's also that kind of aspect of there being some stories to be told, but certainly some conversations to be had.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so great to watch that. Like you said, the response, each sign is a response to the one before it. Each sign has a lot to learn from the one before it. We've gone through this steady Taurus stuff, and it's time to wake up. It's like, oh my God, we're heading toward the end of spring and toward actual summer. So like you said, the logistics, make sure you've got your vacation plan set, all of that stuff. Wherever the sun moves, it brings light, it brings warmth. And so now there is that light and warmth being given to our intellect, Gemini being the mutable air sign. It's the easier conversations. It's not the super intense ones. It's like, yeah, just gathering information together, getting things ready, making your plans. That's a lot of what Gemini season really is about. Interesting.
Yeah. I keep getting this kind of image of like Gemini season being that like waking up in the morning where you're still a little bit sleepy and you're kind of rubbing your eyes and trying to get the sleep out of your eyes, because that Taurus season we had Mercury retrograde. So there was just a lot of really slow down, and Mercury is now direct, and it's still working on picking up speed. It hasn't moved very far. And I'm bringing this up because Mercury rules Gemini. So that's part of the reason I feel like there's this little bit of this like sleepy kind of, all right, it's time to wake up and shake it up and shake it off, and bring some more energy into whatever you're doing in your life. And that's kind of what some of our focal point will be when we get to the individual impacts.
Okay.
But one thing I want to say to add is that the best thing about Gemini is its curiosity. And I know we always talk about that in a way, but it keeps coming back to me as something that's so important. You can kind of dismiss it like, oh, it's just curiosity, but no, it's the spice of life. Curiosity is what brings your attention from one thing to the next and keeps things moving. The pitfall of Gemini would be the more scattered, like the woo, like scattered all over the place. So a big keyword here is curiosity. Employ that curiosity. And that will help you a lot. So
I love that you brought up curiosity. And, if you know your chart, you have your chart, look at where Gemini is. And that is an area where there's a lot of curiosity in your life. And whenever I think about curiosity, I always remember, I think it was a podcast I heard. I think it was, what's that woman's name? Elizabeth, the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. Anyway, Gilbert. Yeah. She talked about, she was talking, it was a conversation about how everyone always talks about, follow your passion. And she had this whole conversation about, well, that's kind of a hard thing because not everybody has a passion. They don't know what their passion is. Most people don't have an overriding passion. Some of us do, and that's great. But many of us don't. And how do you find that? How do you find your direction in life if you keep hearing follow your passion and you don't have one? Well, follow your curiosity, because your curiosity will always open doors that are really, really significant to pass through for your life, for your future. So look at where Gemini is in your chart. Pay attention to curiosity.
Yeah, because it's quite liberating, isn't it? I mean, that's kind of what I think of it as, liberating your mind. It's like this childlike curiosity, fascination. So anyway,
absolutely.
Cool.
So for that first week, is that, let's break this down, talk about it week by week.
Let's dive in. Yeah.
Okay. So this first week, right out of the gate, like we said, these are the two big pieces. These are really so powerful. So we start out with a lot of just really incredibly strong, exciting energy.
This kind of is, I think this is a little bit of fanfare because we've been in this very earthy kind of watery thing, like just in this recently. And now it's like this, dun, 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 like coming out with the air and the fire and these being very powerful planets of Pluto and Mars. I mean, it really is ushering in a huge amount of energy right out of the gate. So it starts with that. And then
right after that, we've got Mars square Jupiter, right?
Yeah, that's exactly, which is interesting because right away, what we see is, oh, hold on. There's a little bit of a pitting against that Taurus energy. I mean, Taurus is kind of saying here, slow down. I know you're excited. I know we're having a big gear shift, but you still need to slow down. You still need to get grounded. That's going to be a very important piece. Like you still need to have your feet on the ground and have some concept of tangibility of concrete matters. So.
And that's, it's interesting because if you listen to our video last month, right toward the end of the month was when Jupiter stepped into Taurus. So this is like brand new. Jupiter goes into Taurus, and right before Gemini season started, Jupiter and Pluto squared. So we had that Jupiter-Pluto square. Jupiter's like, I just want to rest. I've been through Aries. I just want to rest now that I'm in Taurus. And yet there's a lot of heavy energy holding it back.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it might be helpful to have, very helpful to have Jupiter and Taurus here, because it's just a little bit of a reminder of like, whoa, hold your horses a little bit. Like, don't get ahead of yourself. And just really requiring that you keep remembering the more tangible aspects of life instead of just blasting on ahead with your ideas and your enthusiasm. It's kind of keeping you anchored. So I think, that will help you make a more positive choice with whatever you do with that Mars energy, which could be kind of selfish in Leo. So I think there's a little bit of Jupiter going, hold on, don't forget about all these other important things that I think will help with the structure and help you make a good decision.
Yeah, it'll help with that other side of Gemini, that scattered side of Gemini. It'll really kind of settle you down. And yeah, that first step into Gemini of woohoo, and then like, whoa, slow down. There are things to consider before you totally just fly into scattered Gemini kind of energies. So it's an interesting start to the month, isn't it? And then what happens right there at the end of that first week?
Well, let's see. We have what do we have? We have Venus is sextiling Uranus. That's the other aspect that's going on here. So that again is an introduction of those more yin themes of, Taurus and Cancer, kind of like, well, you still got to take care of things. You still got to take care of yourself. You still have to go out and walk in nature. There's something about, those yin things, like don't forget about the yin needs that we all have as human beings, and the people around you.
Yeah, and that happens on the 26th. So that is like, waking you up to what you need to do to really settle your values. I love that you brought in it's springtime. It's late springtime. Go out and take a walk in the woods. This is just a kind of a sweet little spot here on the 26th. I really like that. That's a nice one.
Yeah, and where I'm living, the wildflowers are great this time of year. So it's go out and appreciate the beauty. Venus's beauty, appreciate the natural aesthetics around you, one way or another. So and then I think that's kind of the end of the first week. We come to the first quarter moon, which is going to be in Virgo, which is going to again reiterate some of those more earthy, practical themes, just to sort of counterbalance the impetus of the air and the fire that wants to be more kind of explosive here. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of nice because it's like all this energy comes in and then there's this tempering, like, you don't have to go as fast as you might have thought. So that I think that is nice. And people I talk to are all feeling pretty crazy. So I think that this could be helpful to remember this.
Yeah.
And then we move into the second week. So
okay, let's make all those lines go away, and we'll look at the next week, which we're starting the weeks on Sunday in this conversation, since the season itself started on a Sunday. So this starts on Sunday, May 28th, ending on Saturday, May 3rd. Okay, June. So June 3rd. Whew.
Yeah.
Okay, so that week, really, this is kind of a really important part of this season, because what we've got going on there is the square from the Sun to Saturn. And like Jennie said in our introduction, Saturn is really important right now. Saturn just early in March entered Pisces, and there's just so much, we're just adapting to Saturn being out of its own signs of Capricorn and Aquarius and into Pisces, where it is trying to structure something that really is difficult to structure. Pisces is so much about what is intangible, and Saturn is so much about creating a structure. So this is really highlighting this conversation of what needs to be structured in order to move ahead. Where is there kind of a conflict? There's a conflict between the story you want to tell, the excitement, the beginning of this Gemini season. There's a real bit of a conflict between that and this structuring of some dreamy place that you have.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, I like the way you're presenting this, Laurie. I mean, I really think that some of this is begging a question around, hey, I know you want to move quickly ahead, but you also, need to kind of take responsibility for creating a structure. But B, you also need to make sure you're continuing to take care of yourself. So giving yourself time to rest, giving yourself time to recuperate. You know, the tendency here is to get totally untethered in that Gemini sun and just be kind of flapping around very quickly. And this Saturn issues the challenge of like, nope, you're going to have to stay anchored to the things that you've agreed to do. So there's a seriousness to that tone. But with Pisces, there's so much about make sure that you take those time out. Make sure that you stop literally to smell the roses, smell the flowers, because that is something that we can so easily miss in Gemini season. So I think it's some of those things.
I love the way you just said that. Those are things that we can so easily miss in Gemini season. And that is one of the real challenges of Gemini, is that we can just spin out with activity and thoughts and conversations. It's so easy to spin out. And that makes me think of, how when you, I don't know if this connects or not, but it's just like jumped into my mind. This whole idea of, if you go to a job every day and you travel the same, let's say you have a half-hour drive to work every day, which heaven knows, I'm glad I don't have to do that. But a lot of people probably still do that. And, you get in the car and you drive there and you don't even see. You do it so often. It's just like this habitual thing. And life can bypass us so easily if we don't pay attention. And I think that is so much the demand of this square is slow down and pay attention, because life moves quickly, and it's easy to miss smelling the flowers, as you say. It's easy to miss that, and we don't want to. Yeah, like you said too, there's so much growth going on around us right now with flowers and birds and blah blah blah. All the stuff is just in full activity mode, so slow ourselves down to pay attention to it.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, I was thinking about how the Pisces symbol is two fish swimming away from each other. That's what it means, or that's what the glyph is. And I just thought of two little like rainbow colored fish like shimmering away from each other and how elusive they are. And so there's a message here about, as you're saying, like to really tune in, because you don't want to miss those magical moments. And that is part of what the learning is with Saturn and Pisces. And that theme is going to be even further reiterated this very same week, because on June 2nd, Venus is going to trine Neptune. And that Venus is in Cancer, Neptune is still in Pisces. So again, you have a reiteration of that kind of watery theme of those elusive, magical things. And also water is very much about emotion and valuing emotion and taking care of feelings and using those softer skills to take care of things. So that's a really nice flow that's really reiterating that water theme right up until the end of that week.
I love that. Venus trine Neptune. It's a lovely point. It's a point where you can just really engage your imagination and your open heart. There's such an open-heartedness in that trine. That's beautiful.
Nice.
Take advantage of that on June 2nd. Really employ that in some way. It's a great little aspect for anyone who's a creative person, anyone who's, creating anything of beauty.
Nice. Yeah, there's a transcendence to that. And then that brings us right to our full moon on June 3rd, which we'll make a video about, but just real quick here, the moon will be in Sagittarius at that point. That's going to now kind of lift us back out of those yin spaces for the full moon. The full moon is a fire moon, so that brings a lot more activity and excitement and more socializing and engaging with other people. That we'll see for that on June 3rd. And then we start our next week.
Yeah, then we start our next week. Let's start our next week. The next week starts with, a very interesting conjunction between Mercury and Uranus. So these two, Mercury and Uranus, are actually coming together, beginning a new cycle between the two of them, a new cycle of excitement, really.
Yeah.
Excitement.
Yeah. This is a funny, so this third week really does shift the energy again, because this third week we see much more of the kind of reiteration of the more, this for lack of, the easy way to say it, the more yang themes of activity and socializing and really putting yourself out there. And I think, Mercury, Uranus is a stroke of genius. And the unfortunate reality is it also could be a stroke of anxiety. So just being aware of that moment in time. And I don't know, just knowing that can be helpful. Like I think I'm someone who tends to feel those as more anxiety, and just knowing helps me go, oh, okay, fine. Just, I get out on the bike ride or whatever. So
yeah, I always encourage people to really, really think about the fact that anxiety and excitement are just two sides of the same coin. And obviously it's not easy to just like, oh, I'm feeling all this incredible anxiety, I think I'll turn it into excitement. You can't just flip a switch like that. Some people, respond to Uranus more through excitement, some people more through anxiety, and that's very much dependent on our own individual charts, I think. But to some extent you can think, oh, I'm so anxious. Well, the other side of anxiety is excitement. What could I do in this moment, on this day, that might drop the anxiety and open to a new perspective? Rather than sitting here trying to do paperwork or whatever that's got all my anxiety, maybe I should go out and go for a little run or a bike ride, like you said. That could do that little shift. Sometimes that shift is possible to just do by thinking about it and taking action on it. So what was the date on that again? That was on the
June
4th.
So that's right away kicking off that week. Because and then the next day we have Venus opposed Pluto. So that kind of, now Venus is in Leo. It goes into Leo that day.
So at that,
and it opposes Pluto.
Yeah, it will be here in Leo. It will be opposing Pluto. That's going to bring in some power dynamics for sure. But, the thing that's interesting about that is right after it does that opposition, or right before it does that opposition. Now I'm confused because I have my list is written wrong.
Which part? It goes into Leo.
Venus goes into Leo.
Yeah. It does the same day, and then it immediately opposes Pluto.
Okay, so it goes into Leo and opposes Pluto right away. So that's a very interesting thing to happen, especially, if we think about it. Venus is going to be going retrograde in July in Leo. So Venus is stepping into Leo, where it's going to be for a very, very long time. Wherever you have Leo in your individual chart, you're going to be paying attention to that area of your life a lot over the next quite a bit of time. I think
it's
the retrograde ends on, I think the retrograde is from July 22nd to September 3rd. It goes into Leo here. I'm not sure when it leaves Leo, but it's in there for a long time.
Yeah, it's not till sometime in October. So, so it's, and that is an important period that we will talk at length about that when we get to our next season. So you'll get to see that. And then essentially for the rest of the week, you have a Mercury sextile Neptune, which is sort of a fairly fleeting thing, just a little flow of energy between those two, should you choose to accept it.
Right.
Take advantage of that.
Yeah, sextiles are always possibilities, opportunities. You can ignore it, but you can also take it on. And thinking about Mercury sextiling Neptune, that's a very, write a poem, sing a song, listen to music. That's just kind of a sweet space in your thinking or how you process information or communicate.
I think it's a little heralding in too of the very next day. We have the last quarter phase of the moon, where the moon is in Pisces. So again, you have just this little reminder again of the kind of, I feel like there's such an interplay between yin and yang this month, you know, and you're just having that reminder again of like to not forget about the more ethereal or the more sensitive components of our emotional beings, because humans are emotional beings before we're anything else. It's one of the oldest parts of our brain. So very important to tune into that. And then we have, I think, so then June 11th is a very busy day.
Yeah, and that starts the next week. So
Yeah.
now we're going on to the next week, and that, what does that start with, Jenny? Whew.
Well, Pluto is going to go back into Capricorn for a little while. So we're going to see a reiteration of themes to do with all the things that Pluto and Capricorn represented, which is, you know, major transformational changes in structures and it's kind of a big shift there. So it's going back to take care of any unfinished business with Capricorn topics. And then almost immediately, Mercury is going to trine Pluto and go into Gemini. Those three things happen very quickly. So it's kind of like Mercury's gathering up this massive hit of energy from Pluto of empowerment before it enters Gemini and joins the sun in Gemini. So that's I feel like that June 11th is like the busiest day of the month, dare I say, of the season. I mean,
a very interesting day for sure. Yeah. And Mercury rules Gemini, so it's very happy to step in there and start spouting its big opinions. With that trine to Pluto, I think it's going to have some big things to talk about. You know, I think I just want to mention, with that movement of Pluto back into Capricorn, Pluto entered Aquarius on March 23rd. Is that right? Yeah. March 23rd, Pluto went into, and now it's going out on June 11th. Okay. So from March 23rd to June 11th, it's been in Aquarius. Pay attention to what really was big movement through that period of time. You're going to be revisiting that over the next years. But whatever Pluto has been doing in your life since March 23rd, it's going to kind of step out of that area. You're going to get a little break on that and a reminder of where we were before in Capricorn.
Yeah. And just interesting to see what will unfold in the political stage in that time too. So pay attention outwards as well as inwards for that, to see what's going on. We might see some revisiting of some themes that have been kind of going on since 2008, really. So
that Capricorn is so much about big business and big government and big structures. So we will see a lot of revisiting for sure.
I think that we will, and then also that same day, and this is why I'm saying it's so active, you also have Venus square Jupiter, which is actually going to be that's again that Leo to Taurus kind of face off, where Venus is ready to move forwards and just do all the things and get really extroverted, and Jupiter's like, hold on, you're not grounded. Just a minute. So I see this as a fairly useful contact. So so that's also going on. Then we kind of move on to our next week and sort of finish out the season here.
Well, hold on before you jump into the next week, Jenny. Let's just mention Saturn goes retrograde, and I think that's still in this week, or do I have my weeks off?
Saturn retrogrades on the 17th, so we're not quite there yet.
Okay.
That happens in the week. This busy day on June 11th is kind of the end of the week, and then we move into the week.
I apologize. I printed out my list in some weird time zone that I don't even I don't know how it happened, but I'll blame the fact that Mercury is still retrograde on that. So that means that the next week starts with that Saturn retrograde, does it? Am I still rushing it?
No, it starts on June. I mean, I mean, June 11th, but that's okay. Let's just carry on with our aspects, because what the next thing
Okay.
we're looking at is June 15th. Mercury will square Saturn, which really kind of really highlights the whole theme that we're talking about, this Gemini with the Saturn in Pisces, squaring it. So, and
Right.
then,
So
then,
we
then
started out talking about that square, and then Mercury's squaring it as well. So it's just revisiting, bringing that forth some more, that square, that challenge.
and then Saturn goes retrograde after that.
All right. I was anxious for that, I think. I
I
don't
know.
know exactly why, but I was very anxious for getting us to that point. Thank you
Yeah,
for your patience, Jennie.
that's understandable.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, we're almost to the close of the season. On the 18th, we have the new moon in Gemini. And
We'll
then
do a video about that when the time comes.
and that day, the sun also squares Neptune, which is a challenging, I don't know, to me, that kind of brings in that more boggy feeling again with the sun squaring Neptune, and bringing in that heavier, like, you want to move forwards in this really clear, concise direction. And Neptune's like, no, we're just going to swim in the current here.
Yeah.
Like this, you're just going to swim with this little whirlpool right here. Like, you're not actually going to go in a direction that you're not swimming laps in the pool. You are going to be taken into this more of the current.
Yeah,
So,
and because that is so closely aligned with the new moon, it's like the beginning, the new moon beginning has to incorporate that more passive side of Neptune. It has to incorporate, it has to take into consideration imagination and suffering and all those kind of Neptunian themes. That's an interesting new moon connection, but we will be doing a video on that new moon, so we don't need to go deeply into that right now.
yeah, but I like the way you said that. Was good, Laurie, though, because it's again, I just feel like there's this reminder throughout this whole season, like, to not forget about the bigger picture, to not forget about
Yeah.
the suffering of yourself and of others, to not forget to work with the ideas of developing compassion. Even as you want to charge ahead and tell your story, like, it's kind of like, just slow down a little bit, remember to include other people. And it's just a pause. It's just that little pause. It isn't a huge thing.
Right.
It's a good reminder. So
Yeah.
and then I think our final aspect is the Jupiter sextile Saturn, which you were mentioning as one of your favorites. So
Did I say that? Let's see.
I might have made
Jupiter.
that.
You might have. Jupiter sextile Saturn. That to me is just sextiles are so lovely. They're so lovely, and they just give us an opportunity to, in this case, I think of this as a real stabilization of what you know to be true, what you believe, a stabilization of your feet on the ground, the connection. You think about the connection between Pisces, the imagination, and Taurus, the earth, and just, take advantage of that and go out again. I just keep telling people, go out and put your naked feet on the ground. That's really important. And that is the last aspect. And I'm going to bring us back again. I can't help it, Jennie. I'm going to bring us back again to that Saturn retrograde. I just want to mention one more thing about that. That Saturn retrograde is happening at 7 degrees Pisces. And so if you have planets or personal planets or important points right there in those early degrees, around 7 degrees of any of the mutable signs, you want to really pay attention, because that is going to be a place of great learning involved with any planets you have there. Saturn generally spends, I don't know, 5 months retrograde. Is that right? For some reason.
I'm not sure off the top of my head, actually, but it's always in relationship to the sun. Now the sun is kind of clearing out of those in the northern hemisphere. What I think about is the winter signs. There's going to be enough distance where, because once Saturn kind of gets close into the trine aspect of the sun with the sun, that's usually about when it turns retrograde.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be a little it'll, I don't know exactly, but it's gonna be more like 100 degrees, not 120, but blah, blah, blah. That's astronomy, nerd, whatever. But there's very clear cycles to these things. So
yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
all right.
So, but do pay attention if you have planets or points around that 6 degrees of any of the mutable signs, you'll be really feeling that. You know, when Saturn goes retrograde, it's just going to go back and revisit some of the area before that. It's not going to go back into Aquarius. It doesn't go back that far, but it'll be doing a retrograde for a time here. Okay, so that kind of brings us to the end. The sun enters Cancer on June 21st. I have no idea what time because I have this weird printout that I did in the wrong time zone. Do you know what time it goes into Cancer?
Nope. I know what time it goes into Gemini, but yeah.
Okay.
No, I had.
So yeah, it's on the 21st at any rate. And then we will be making another video about Cancer season. So at this point, we're going to stop sharing this and we're going to go on to our individual impacts. Okay, so for the individuals here, we're going to start. Well, let's get back to where we need to begin. All right, for those of you with Aries rising.
Okay.
This looks like Gemini. We're struggling here, Jenny. We're talking over each other. But I think that's okay. People will forgive us. Gemini, for those of you with Aries rising, Gemini is in your 3rd house. You people with Aries rising, you probably have a lot to say, and you're going to really, there's going to be a lot of attention focused on that area of your life, your conversations, siblings, neighbors, all those things that are the 3rd house.
And you also have Saturn in your 12th house. Again, check out the Saturn and going to Pisces video for a deep dive. But the short of it is that Saturn is revealing something about your subconscious patterns or something that's hidden from your view somehow. So it's kind of like when you're doing all that Gemini stuff where you run around and be super chatty and talk quickly to a lot of people. Saturn's in the background reminding you to kind of slow down, to think about feelings, to think about emotions, to bring those into play here, not just charge ahead with your intellectual talking self.
Yeah, that it's interesting. If you think about how, last year for such a big chunk of time while Mars was moving through that Gemini, you were really learning, those of you with Aries rising were really learning a lot about who you are in communication, in conversation, how you manage yourself in that space. And now this is really just deepening that learning and really paying attention, bringing your attention to how your unconscious patterns, your internal unconscious patterns relate to and distract possibly your ability to speak up and say what you need to. So there's something in there to really pay attention to.
Yeah. And again, it's, tap into the curiosity of what's happening. And that, can help you actually slow down a little bit because curiosity kind of, it sets off your mind in a different way so that you're kind of a little more open instead of just charging ahead with whatever your line of story is. It kind of creates a space where you can be like, oh, okay, maybe maybe the question is that you just need to slow down and make room for other people and listen to them. Because the tendency might be to rattle on forwards yourself, but what you really want to do is make sure that you make space for other people, and especially other people's suffering. Like if somebody's trying to tell you a story where they need your support, you do want to kind of slow down and tap what you're trying to learn from that Saturn in your 12th house. So something like that.
I think that's great. And also just thinking about how your voice, how you use your voice, how you communicate is tied to these old unconscious patterns that you may not be paying attention to. And Saturn is saying, pay attention to these unconscious patterns and how they are coming through in your conversation. So you might have a lot to learn.
Yeah.
You might have a lot to learn about what's under the hood there that is really driving your voice.
Yeah. And I was just going to comment as you're saying that, it's like, this is, you know, I know we talk about this a lot with the 12th house, but this might be a really good time to get some support around this. I mean, I think talk therapy is kind of fits this description to a T in a lot of ways. If you're not in talk therapy, it could be something that would be super helpful. If you're already in it, great, well done, you know, stick with it and see what you can learn. That's kind of what it pops in my head. So
yeah, I always, when I see Saturn in a person's 12th house, I always ask if they're in therapy. And it's not like, oh, you're so screwed up, you need therapy. It's like, this is an opportune time to do some of that work. We all need to look at what is in our unconscious thinking. Always. At different times in our lives, it's more relevant than others, because at different times in our lives, the planets are really supporting us doing that work. And so for those of you with Aries rising, there is a great deal of support right now for you to be really looking at some of your internal unconscious patterns. And at this period of time during Gemini season, really learning through that, how to use your voice.
yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So let's move on to those with Taurus rising. Well, if we can get it to do it. Whoops.
You mouse.
Oh dear. Okay.
All right. So for those of you with Taurus rising, Gemini season is showing up in your second house, which is the house of money and your energy reserves and your self-worth, among others. So there's a real light being shown into that second house. So it's a good time to think about, let's think about this like logistically, like what are the logistical financial things you might need to do during this season? But you also might want to look at what's the story you're telling yourself about your self-worth. And, you know, can you shift that? Because there's been months where Mars was retrograding in Gemini. So this part of your life has already gotten a lot of attention. And now the sun is kind of showing, all right, well, what's happened since then? Where are you at now? And it's a great opportunity to take care of some of those more, I don't know, logistical talky things. And then you have Saturn posing a question about your community. You know, what kind of support are you getting from your community? Do you feel supported? How does that Saturn challenge your notion about money? You know, what is the interplay between how you think about money and then what's going on in your community?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some challenge to, there's some challenge to your self-worth or your pocketbook, your wallet. There's some challenge from community. And when we talk about community, it can get a little confusing for people. Community is not your family. It's not your very best friends. It's like-minded others. It's where you receive support, but not super personally. It's like-minded others, people who you are joined with for some particular purpose. I think of, the way the 11th house used to be talked about way back in the day as the house of our hopes and dreams and wishes. And it's the people that support us to that. It's the people that support us to where we want to go. So what's the challenge? What's the conflict? What effort do you have to put into developing a community that really supports your self-worth or supports how much money you've got in your bank or resources, something in that realm? So that's where there's a bit of a challenge. It's coming from the community that is challenging you to develop some curiosity, really paying attention to what is my self-worth, and how is that connected to the state of my bank account, and how are those things connected to the community that supports me. If I don't have a community that supports me, that lack is something that really needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the interesting thing about this setup for Taurus rising is it's kind of bringing together the more personal half of the chart, which is below the horizon, and the more universal half of the chart, which is above the horizon. So it is very much that link of that your personal resources and how they interplay with community resources. So, yeah.
Yeah, take into consideration what that connection is. And, the thing with a square is it can show up as a difficulty. It can show up like, I don't feel good about myself and I'm not making any money because there's a problem in my community. It can show up initially as a difficulty, but the reason for that difficulty is to bring your attention to what you need to do to build that support in that area. Do you need to go find a new community for yourself, or do you need to take some responsibility for a community that you're already involved in? Wherever Saturn is, there's facing reality and then taking responsibility. So community is very important in that. And during this period of time, get curious about that connection, ask yourself some of those questions, and move forward and enjoy Gemini season.
All right.
Ready?
Move on.
Moving on. Those of you with, those of you with Gemini rising. Oh, this is quite personal for these folks, isn't it, Jennie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
During the whole Mars retrograde, that whole period of time between, what was it, last August and March, Mars was doing its retrograde and hanging out there in your first house. You probably went through a lot of just kind of reintroducing yourself to yourself and to others, like finding a new way of understanding your personality. And now in the conversation that brings in Saturn, there's a stress, a challenge to that new understanding of who you are. There's a stress from your career, most likely, or your reputation.
Yeah, this season's so much about communication. And I mean, as a Gemini rising, communication is absolutely paramount to everything else that you have going on in your life. So this Gemini season really shines a light on all things communication, like how you do it, what stories do you tell, like how do you command people's attention? And with Saturn in that 10th house, I mean, that is exactly the question. How do you command people's attention at work? What is your role at work with communication? And then what is it that you need to do that is requiring you to take more authority in your workplace? I mean, that's some of the, that might be, it's probably kind of stressful just in the sense that we always have stuff about, we don't know how we show up to other people. And that's what the first house represents, among other things, is the image that we give off to other people. So there's some tension around that. And there's some necessity of just kind of stepping into that. And it's okay if you feel kind of vulnerable because you've got Pisces in your 10th house. So it's natural that there's going to be a vulnerability that goes along with this. But in a nutshell, I mean, these are two very powerful houses that have to do with your identity. So
since Saturn just recently, early in March, that's not quite so recently. I'm thinking it's like, I'm sorry.
Goes quick.
Time goes by so fast. But early in March, when Saturn moved into that 10th house, it's like you're really just adapting to that, to a more serious conversation about your career. And that is really playing into this new story you're telling about yourself. It's really a nice combination, actually, once you learn to work with it. The square is always a bit difficult to adjust to because it feels like there's a challenge from your career. It feels like you're being challenged in some way. Your career is challenging your personality. And, that can be difficult. But you really have to work with these square aspects to make the effort to stabilize the career enough to allow yourself to show up as who you've really learned yourself to be so much more in the past year or so with that Mars retrograde that we went through.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, all right. I hope it goes well.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to move now to those of you with Cancer rising. Oh, this is really interesting because with Cancer rising, you've got Gemini in your 12th house. You probably have spent your life with a lot of curiosity around what goes on under the surface in your own unconscious. You've got a lot of curiosity there. And this really brings your attention. This season really brings your attention into that area. How's that feel, Jennie?
I think with Gemini in the 12th house too, there's just a lot of curiosity around spirituality in general, and like, what's the big picture? What's the collective? Where do we come from? Like, why is the human race like on this planet? You know, big questions like that. There's a natural curiosity. And I think that's the kind of the best part in a lot of ways about that. And right now that sun is kind of shining a light on those deeper subconscious processes. And with Saturn in the 9th house, I mean, it's impacting your worldview, the way that you gather wisdom from your world experiences, you know, the countries you travel to, the books you read, the foreign people that you meet and you learn from. So in a lot of ways, this is just a wonderful part of your learning, your whole education as a human being. And these are the higher levels of education, you know, where you're really being pushed to think critically, to take on board other people's points of views that are so different from your own. And then incorporate that into your spirituality. I mean, it's really just a great learning time, I think.
That's
And
awesome.
you do have to take responsibility for whatever that wisdom is in the 9th house too. Like, you've got to take responsibility for opening your mind. You know, you've got to be willing to be empathetic to other viewpoints, to walk in other people's shoes, to access the wisdom.
And I think one of the questions that this brings up is, do you have the education to be doing what you're doing? You know, one of the things as you're talking about this, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I could in just a moment's time, I could name a whole list of people that I know who are either astrologers or psychologists who have Cancer rising. And, you know, I've always kind of thought of that as well. Of course, they have Cancer rising, so they care about people and all that kind of thing. But when you think about it, these people with Cancer rising have Gemini in that 12th house. So bringing an intellectual study to the unconscious mind is so much a part of why that works that way. I'm sure it's very interesting. So if you've got Cancer rising, you have an intellectual curiosity about spirituality and about what goes on under the surface and what's hidden from view. So attaching and that's this is a really lovely time to do some work to really explore, okay, I've got this intellectual understanding or this intellectual need to understand what is hidden. What do I need what do I need to understand about the bigger world in order to continue to develop that? Do I need some education? Do I need some travel? Do I need to understand bigger cultural pieces?
Yeah.
That's lovely.
Yeah, whatever's going on in your particular 12th house in your natal chart too will reveal much information about what are some of the maybe some of the obstacles and the blocks that you really need to work with to take the deeper dive. I think that's another thing to think about. But yeah, so interesting.
That is interesting, isn't it? Okay, so let's move on and we'll go to those of you with Leo rising. And this is going to put that Gemini curiosity in your 11th house.
Yeah, that's an interesting place. I mean, this really just draws your attention to your community, And if you consider yourself a pretty extroverted person, which you may or may not, depending on what your chart says, but that's kind of what it brings in. Like brings in a much more social, chatty, talkative time in your community. And again, we always talk about community means different things, but essentially it's the like-minded cohorts that support you. So these are the people that you can geek out with about whatever your major interests are. This is not necessarily a very personal placement, and especially with Gemini there, this is like chatty, like go out and rub elbows. This just makes me think of like a cocktail party, you know. I mean, just like a fundraiser maybe for so there's something about those topics that are coming to light. But meanwhile, the challenge is coming from the 8th house, which is woo. I mean, there's so much more going on here. I mean, the 8th house I also think of as well, it's kind of like the iceberg house. It's like you're bumping into all the stuff beneath the surface with other people that you didn't see right away. And so there's a challenge being issued here about, you know, bumping up against maybe people who make you feel uncomfortable, yet they're part of your community. So how do you work with that? That's the question.
That's the question, and that's the learning. You know, I think of one of the things with the 11th house is it kind of reminds me of the 3rd house in some ways, in that you may have the choice of the community, but you don't have the choice of the individuals within the community. And it's the reason it reminds me of the 3rd house is you don't have the choice of your siblings or your neighbors. But at any rate, with that Saturn in the 8th house, it's like there are going to be certain individuals within your community that are challenging your ability to receive the support that you need from community. So really, you know, what your challenge at this point is to really learn to navigate those relationships in order to continue working within the scope of a community. You know, and with coming off the Mars retrograde that was in that 11th house for you last year, you learned a lot. You very well may have a very different community now than you had a year ago, or there's been big changes in that. And this is kind of, I think of this as sort of challenging the work that you already did. Like, how did you do with that? And yeah, are you really able to navigate those relationships? What else do you need to do to up your game on that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, both of these houses really deal with resources. So it's the resources of other people, and then it's the resources of your community and how they come into play, you know, with and against each other. Very interesting. Your community is going to provide you with those perhaps triggering individuals that give you the opportunity to learn how to set better boundaries with those people. I mean, that's really what it is. So it's, you know, I always think of squares are challenging, but they make us grow, and there's nothing without growth. I mean, we have to have growth. So these are, if you show up with an attitude of, hey, there might be a challenge, and then, you know, and then you can work with it instead of resisting the challenge itself. So
whenever there's something big going on in the 8th house, and you're challenged by someone else's beliefs or someone else's whatever values, I always encourage people to, you know, those are your teachers. Those people in that community, in this particular case, because of that connection, those are the people who are really there to teach you how to do the work necessary to set your own boundaries. If you were never challenged, you'd never have to set any boundaries, right? And with Pisces, because if you've got Leo rising, you've got Pisces in that 8th house, it may be really challenging for you to set boundaries throughout your life. You might have encountered a lot of difficulties because you tend to be a little you just
wishy-washy.
I was going to say wishy-washy, and I decided that was kind of, but yeah, basically, yeah, it's hard. It's like putting structure around something that just wants to slip through your fingers. But this, with Saturn in here, it is a time that you must learn boundaries, learn about how to work with boundaries. Working with ritual is a good way to do that. But during this Gemini season, you're going to be challenged by that from some members of your community. Don't run off and find another community and throw that one away, because guess what? You're going to encounter the same thing in the next community. So just hunker down.
Only bigger and hairier.
Right. So hunker down, be grateful to those people that are your teachers. Bottom line, that's it. Anything else?
Nope. Let's carry on to
Okay, we're going to go
Virgo.
on to Virgo rising. I'm going to let you talk about this one. I'm going to listen.
I know why. All right. Well, for Virgo rising, Gemini season is landing squarely in your career, in that 10th house of your profession, how you show up in public, your social reputation, the most public place in the entire chart. So that's what you're working with. It's going to illuminate, I don't know, something that you worked with for the last few months, because you had Mars retrograding in that 10th house for months. So you've had a lot of time to consider what on earth is going on in your profession. So what are the changes you've been through? That's what the sun's going to illuminate. It's going to show you what is different now than what it was, let's say, since last August. So it's a really good time to take care of some logistics. It's time to reinfuse your business with some curiosity. And at the same time, you're also getting this challenge from Saturn going through your 7th house. So the challenge here is about how you handle yourself in one-on-one relationships. With Pisces in the 7th house, it can be quite easy to idealize or to be confused about who you're actually dealing with in one-on-one relationships. And then Saturn coming to the 7th house is kind of saying, hey, time to take responsibility for this end of it. What's going on? Can you incorporate more empathy or understanding in your one-on-one dealings? Because it's so easy to idealize somebody here. And Saturn brings in a reality check, which is ultimately extremely helpful. So then you have this interplay between the two, because those one-on-one relationships, it might be your intimate partners, but it also could be just someone who's helping you in your profession, a one-on-one professional who's helping you, take something to the next level. So there's a real interplay here. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think it's really, really fascinating. To me, it's like the story that you're telling yourself about your career, what you're creating with your intellectual curiosity, what you're creating in your career is being challenged in some way by others. And it's not, it might look like it's those individual people that are challenging you, but it's really your own understanding of how you are in relationship with other people. Because with Pisces there, you tend to be pretty wishy-washy. I'm going to use that term now. I feel like you gave me permission. So, you can be pretty wishy-washy about your relationships. You can put them up on a pedestal, and Saturn is saying, no, you have to really create a structure around the way you manage relationships in order to create the career you want, because your career involves being in communication with other people all the time. So you can't just be wishy-washy about all your relationships. What's that going to create for your career? So yeah, I think that is a really interesting connection there. And there may be actual people that are challenging you in your career. Your intimate partnership might be challenging you in your career, or some of your clients might be challenging you in your career. Again, remember, they are your teachers, because that is where the learning is. Saturn's going to be there in your 7th house for about 3 years. You're going to learn a lot about how you navigate your intimate partnerships and your relationships with individuals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. I think we're ready to move on now to those of you with Libra rising.
Oh,
And this
Libra.
puts the Gemini sun in your 9th house. So there's a lot of attention around your worldview, around opening up. Here we are at the end of spring. And like we talked about early in the video itself, that this Gemini season is so much about preparing for summer.
Mm.
So, for Libra rising, you might be really thinking about all these explorations that you want, all this travel you want to do, all this learning you want to do. So that's where a lot of attention is in your life right now. You've got a lot of curiosity in that area. What's it going to be like? Mars has been working its, during the past year, you've had a lot of time as Mars did its retrograde in there to really kind of open up a new conversation, a new way of understanding your own worldview. So now your attention comes back there and you get to think about it. What is my worldview? What is important to me in exploring and expanding my understanding of the world? And you've got a little challenge. Before we talk about the little challenge, you want to talk about anything else I missed about that 9th house?
Oh yeah, I don't think you missed anything, but it's a fun thing to think about, because I think with Libra rising, there's such a focus on social time. And I imagine that Taurus season, the last season we just had, was a little tougher for the Libra desire to be so social. And now you kind of get to let all that out of the box and like get real social in that 9th house. And I think that might be rather liberating. So that's the only thing I wanted to add before you get into the Saturn.
Right. It might be rather liberating, and there's a challenge to it.
And
what's the challenge? The challenge comes from the 6th house. So the challenge is probably coming from your day-to-day work or your health concerns. There's something in that area that is a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the 6th house is it's really kind of where the rubber meets the road. It's those practices and those routines that support everything else about your life. And with Pisces in that 6th house, this is a kind of difficult place to get at for you, because Pisces is the total opposite of routines, right? So the Saturn in there really just kind of hones in on that question. How can you create structure and routine that still contains some of the magic that keeps you excited about whatever you're doing? And that's the key. And that it's a delicate little thing to work with. But your health absolutely depends on it. And Saturn is just kind of bringing in this idea of how do you structure that? And the nice part is, even though it's a square, it's supporting your ability to open your mind. It's supporting your ability to have critical thinking about the world around you, to take in other people's points of views and incorporate that into your routines. I mean, this is a real learning position. I mean, the 6th and the 9th house are both part of the houses that are really about how you learn and how you prepare to, make transitions, to allow in new energy. So that's kind of what the thing is here. I mean, I think, yes, there might be some challenge here, but I see some real bright spots in this one for Libra rising. So.
Yeah, you just, it will slow you down. That Saturn square will slow you down. But again, what do you see when you slow down that you can't see when you're moving too fast?
And a lot.
A lot. So
it's actually quite helpful.
Yeah, I think it is quite helpful. Gemini can just go off and be so scattered. And Saturn here is saying, no, there's something in your daily routines that we are going to keep you slowed down, which is going to ultimately be really helpful in your understanding and your planning for the summer, whatever that may be. Huh.
Yeah.
I like that.
It really reminds me, you just got me thinking, just real quick here. It really reminds me of it's kind of like you plan this big trip to, let's say, Europe, if you're living in the United States and you're really excited about your big trip and it's so cool. And then the Saturn is kind of like, okay, well, how are you going to spend each day? What church are you going to visit? Like, what cool building? The churches in Europe are amazing, these huge cathedrals. Or where are you going to get some food that reflects the foreign culture? I mean, it's kind of like those two things together. That's what it made me think of.
I love that you brought that up, because that really gives it a practical, okay, the difficulty, I have to, there's some difficulty here, but using that difficulty to develop, again, that Saturn in Pisces, using Saturn to create structure within which the magic can occur. So
Yeah.
you can go to Europe, you can go take a trip to Europe and scatter your energies all over the place and end up not
Exactly.
seeing anything. Or you can make the lists, make the plans, and actually slow down enough to come back from that trip and have something you remember instead of just a big blur.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's lovely. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, let's move
Right.
on then to those of you. What?
Scorpio.
Oh, Scorpio. Scorpio. Where's Scorpio? Got it. Scorpio. If you've got Scorpio rising, this Gemini season highlights your 8th house. Oh, that's appropriate, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of, it is. I mean, it's kind of, I always think it's funny being a Scorpio rising and having Gemini here, because Gemini can be so quick and kind of make snap judgments and actually keep it kind of shallow, in a funny way. And Scorpio rising is so deep. So it's an interesting interplay. But at any rate, that sun is going to shine a light on that 8th house, which is really where and how we deal with other people's stuff, so other people's money, other people's values, other people's baggage and intense emotions. Those are all some of the topics of the 8th house. Yet it pertains very much to your inner processes of knowing yourself, being square with your own vulnerabilities so that you can then deal with other people. You can set good, healthy boundaries with other people when they have their struggles.
You know what I was thinking too is with Scorpio rising, with all that depth of Scorpio rising, and the ability with Gemini there on the 8th house, the ability to show up in deep places with other people with a light touch enables Scorpio rising to kind of gather a lot of information from other people. I'm not sure. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, that totally makes
gather
sense.
all this
Like that.
information, and the person on the other end doesn't really see the depth that Scorpio, the deep ability Scorpio has to pull information out from others, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely.
That's
Yeah.
a really interesting combination.
Yeah,
Because
and it's like
Scorpio
how,
wants to know everything that's under the surface. But if Scorpio rising went and engaged in deep conversations with other people in a deep, deep manner, those other people would run away. But they can approach that with this lightness and gather everything that they need to know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Scorpios, it's a detective. I mean, this is why Scorpio is associated with the detective and the psychologist. And having a Scorpio rising in particular, I mean, it's really interesting looking at the whole picture. And meanwhile, but I mean, speaking of that, then that's what's really nice about the Saturn square, because Saturn is in Pisces squaring that sun. So, in the 5th house where Saturn is right now for you is all about giving love. So it really brings in this question around, okay, when you're doing the light touch and gathering information, are you also being accountable for the way you're giving love and doing it with this more Pisces component of really being considerate and compassionate for the other person? You're not just doing it to gather information and be the spooky, sneaky Scorpio. You're doing it also to provide a way of giving love and bringing some more lightness into the whole situation. So it's funny and that is a challenge, because I think it could be pretty easy just to, gather and squirrel away the information, but there's a higher purpose here. And what's the higher purpose? For you to be giving of yourself in an unconditional way and to support others through that process.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting. So as your attention, I'm just trying to think this through a little bit more. As your attention is on gathering, telling a story about how you navigate other people's stuff, the challenge is coming from your own creativity. Does that, I'm trying to spin that out in my thinking. It's an interesting combination because Saturn has just recently gone into that 5th house. So you're really trying to structure this area of your creativity. And that in structuring that area of your creativity, it is challenging. It's kind of challenging that light touch.
Yeah.
Of how you navigate other people. It's really encouraging you to, like you said, bring more compassion to it, bring more depth to it. So there's a challenge to being too light.
Yeah. And also can work in the other way too, like where, maybe you're working with somebody and they really trigger you and you get up emotionally triggered and you're like, oh, perfect thing to do is go and pour yourself into some creative processes. Go and pour yourself into that. Maybe you're someone who likes to make pottery, go to the pottery studio and make some pottery. I mean, do your creative. I mean, it's a way of also using those difficult emotions to fuel something really creative that that you're just going to do and immerse yourself in. I mean, there's a really nice interplay. I always think that between the 5th and the 8th, there's this real interplay. The 5th is your personal creative resource, and then the 8th is other people's resources. And it's like just thinking about how those two things work together, how other people can inspire you, or you get upset and you can pour
your face off.
Yeah, exactly. Trigger your face off. That's the other 8th house thing.
Yeah. And you can also think about this as if you think about the 5th house, we're talking about it as creativity. That house is also, it's where we give of ourselves. It can also relate to issues of children and love affairs, not major relationships, but love affairs. So this could really also indicate some way in which your children are triggering your face off, or a lover that's been so much fun and all of a sudden there's a challenge there, and if it's showing up in one of those kind of ways, you want to think about, or any of these that we've talked about, this is where there's a real teaching element. You are learning through your creativity, through your children, through your love affairs. You're learning how to navigate those places where those things bring you into deep necessity to navigate other people's issues.
And the other funny little thing about this whole Scorpio rising thing is that the 5th house is the house of taking risks. And then you have Saturn, the most conservative, risk-averse planet in there. And so I think it's something about asking, like, you need to take risks. What kind of risks are going to be constructive? This isn't, so there is this question there about constructive risk, which I think is super helpful. So
yeah, constructive risk. That's great in thinking about, for those of you with Scorpio rising, Saturn's going to be in that 5th house for 3 years. So really learning to understand, thinking about constructive risk. That's a great little phrase there that you just said, Jenny. I really like that, because that's what you're going to be really working with. Constructive risk. Okay. And now we are going to move on to those of you with, whoops, let's go back there. Sagittarius. Oh gosh, my mouse is a little overly sensitive. Okay, Sagittarius rising. What do you think here?
Yeah, well, let's see. I mean, this is bringing the attention right on into your partnerships with Gemini on the 7th house of partnerships. So to reiterate, this can be your marriage. This can be your intimate one-on-one partner. It also can be anyone that you're in a one-on-one relationship with in the moment. So when you sit down with your astrologer, that's a 7th house thing. That's a one-on-one thing. So can be fleeting, can be for a lifetime. And the sun here is really illuminating. Well, let's see. A bunch of things went on there with Mars retrograding in Gemini for months and months and months, all the way from August until March. So there's been a lot of attention in this part of your life. And now the sun is coming in to kind of check in and illuminate whatever shifts were made. And the sun in Gemini is always going to bring in talking, conversing, discussing, like bringing that real conversational component to it. So that's kind of what this Gemini season is going to highlight. In a nutshell,
Yeah, there's a lot of curiosity about your partner, or about how you navigate partnership, how you, well, what your needs and wants and desires are in partnerships during that Mars retrograde that you were talking about, Jennie. You very well may have changed things in a big way around partnership. You may be in a totally new relationship, or the relationship you're in may have changed a lot. So like you said, the sun moving in here kind of reminds us what we've been through, what we've changed, what's new in this area, and really getting curious about how the state of your partnerships are at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, the sun, it's just so illuminating. So, that's really interesting. And then you have Saturn squaring it, and Saturn is in the house of home. So the fourth house is the most private area of your life. You have it in Pisces if you have Sagittarius rising. So there's some kind of challenge here being issued. Some kind of, and there's often interplay, right, between our family life and our partnership. In many different ways. I'm sure many of you watching this can think about many different ways that there's a challenge between your family life and your partnership. But here in Pisces, there is a question around, I don't know, just how is your sense of compassion towards your family? Are you able to bring in those sort of more sensitive emotional components that Pisces invites? Are you able to keep the magic alive in your family life? There's something about that. I don't know. What do you think about this, the interplay here, Laurie?
Well, I'm thinking about it. Saturn has just relatively recently moved into that fourth house. So we're just kind of adjusting. I feel like we're all just kind of adjusting to Saturn being in Pisces. And so there's some new attention in that area of home. There's some way that we are really like facing reality and being really serious about developing what we need and want around our home or our family.
Yeah.
So how that is a challenge to the light curiosity you want to be bringing to your relationship. One of the things I think about with this square is that the people that are involved in the area where Saturn is are really teachers for the illumination of where the sun is. So if you've got some family members at home that are not appreciating something about a partner, or if there's some difficulty there, pay attention to what you're learning in your home and how it relates to your partnership. That there's a million ways that could be playing out. Like you said, there might be a problem with the house itself.
Right.
You might suddenly have discovered you need to dig a new basement or put a new roof on your house, and it's going to cost a lot of money, and that's creating conflict in your family. It could be a million different scenarios, but there's some stress there, and really being aware that this is a learning opportunity. It's not the suggestion, the need here is not to dump your relationship or dump your family and run in another direction. It's to hunker down and figure out what the learning is. What is my home teaching me about how to be in relationship? What is my family teaching me about how to be in relationship? Saturn's going to be going through that fourth house for you for about 3 years. You've got a lot to learn through your home and family. If you try to run away from it, you're going to just be hitting that wall again and again and again and again. So hunker down, take the learning, be grateful for it. Saturn becomes our friend more and more as time goes by.
Yeah, I was thinking too, one thing I've been really thinking about lately too is the fourth house also represents land. And I think that being connected to land is an interesting thing that is at the root of a lot of our issues in our society. So I've been just kind of thinking about that, like land, the place where you put your feet, where your home is. Do you go out into your yard and wander around? Like what kind of relationship do you have with, the plants in your yard and that kind of thing. So there's also that component here to think about land, and also ancestry is another piece. And I mean, with all these like new, 23andMe and ancestry.com, there's a lot of stuff that can come about to do with ancestry in the fourth house as well. So it's quite an interesting house, and at every level, it refers to the roots that are in your personality as you develop your own emotional security. I mean, so there's a lot going on here. But I just think with Saturn going through this house, it could bring up these other, more esoteric issues you don't think about right out of the gate. So whatever it is for you, best of luck.
Oh, I'm really glad you brought up the ancestry piece, because I think that is so important with Saturn moving through that house. It's so important to think about, where you come from, what your ancestors are. It's important at any rate. Okay, so let's move on to those of you with Capricorn rising. This puts your attention, the Gemini attention of Gemini season, into your sixth house of routines, how you support your body, how you support your life, how you support your health. There's a lot of curiosity there. You are with Capricorn, those of you with Capricorn rising have a lot of curiosity around that, around how you take care of your health.
Mm-hmm.
Intellectual curiosity in that area. And that's really being heightened here.
Yeah, because it really refers to all of those routines. Like, I think one routine might be like reading, do you read every night before bed? I mean, that's a nice thing to think about with Gemini here in your sixth house. So it is how you take care of your health and your body and so on. But it's also those habits that, I don't know, help keep you excited about life are going to be super important with Capricorn rising. So
yeah,
nice.
Especially with Gemini there. Yeah, those routines have to engage your intellect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then there's a challenge being issued here as well. You've got Saturn in your third house of communication. So Saturn is asking you to take more responsibility for how you communicate. I think in Pisces, it's sort of saying, hey, are you empathetic when you communicate? Are you able to listen and receive to what other people are telling you? With Saturn there, there's a question around that. Or are you not, and just kind of evaluating, what do I need some work on around my communication? Because that's going to impact those routines. How you handle your communications with other people is going to very much have an impact on what you do in those habits of your daily life. So.
It's an interesting, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about Saturn moving through that third house for you with Capricorn rising. Saturn's going to be in there for about 3 years. And this is, it only moved in there in March. So you're just adjusting to this, and Saturn and the sun, as it moves into Gemini, creating this square aspect, is really asking you to look at what it is you're learning in terms of communication and how you are bringing that into your day-to-day routines. And I love that you brought up, a daily habit of reading, a daily habit of writing. These are things that you really want to consider if you've got Capricorn rising, because Saturn's moving through your third house. You are learning so much about how to use your voice. So if you don't have a daily writing practice or reading practice or both, you're missing a huge opportunity. Saturn moving through the third house is an incredible time for somebody to really engage and learn and understand how to use their voice. And connecting that to the routines is just beautiful. Join a writing group or something.
Or, I mean, the other thing I was thinking too is maybe it's time maybe you're a little disconnected from a sibling. Maybe it's time to make a daily or a weekly habit of checking in with a sibling. I mean, sometimes a third house can be a close friend too, like with the idea that it's a close friend that you talk to daily, So there's something here about maybe there's a way you need to, routinize, make a routine out of connecting with somebody like that maybe that relationship's slipping away a little bit. Because I know that can happen so easily. We're all so busy, and it's texting and computers and everything. It's like maybe just the simplicity of incorporating something like that would be helpful.
Neighbors, siblings, those people, neighbors and siblings, and just the people that you interact with on a day-to-day routine can be huge teachers for you in this regard. While Saturn's moving through that third house, you're learning a lot through those those relationships, you're learning a lot about how to use your voice. Yeah, if you routinize your connections with siblings or a neighbor, you're going to learn a lot about how to better, more responsibly use your voice.
Yeah.
Huh, I
Nice.
love that. That's beautiful. Okay, that I think covers it for Capricorn rising. And now we're going to move on to those of you with Aquarius rising. This puts the Gemini season focus in the 5th house, which is the area of the chart where we, you know, the old time astrologers called the 5th house the house of love, children, love affairs, and creativity. And really what that 5th house is where we give of ourselves without reserve. It's also the house which, Jennie, you often bring up. It's the house of risk. It's the house of fun. It's the house of where we just give ourselves freely. So there's a lot of curiosity. You are ready. And with those first few days of this season, with the sextile to Mars and the trine to Pluto, you're going to be like, woohoo, let's get it going, right? I'm going to give
Yeah.
of myself all over the place. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of curiosity built up in that area.
Yeah, and you have a lot to offer others with your ideas, with your
Mhm.
communication, how you talk to other people. I mean, you really, with Aquarius rising, you have a huge propensity to invigorate other people through your conversation, because you have Gemini there. Your intellectual curiosity helps stimulate other people, and that is one of your gifts. And I think
Mhm.
that that's awesome, you know? And because at the
Yeah.
same time, what else is going on, Laurie?
What else is going on? I love that. It's really,
Yeah.
really fascinating to like have these, to link these ideas, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, the way that you give of yourself is all about your intellect and your curiosity, your intellectual curiosity. That's what you give to others. And what a gift indeed. Okay, so the challenge comes from Saturn, there
Yep.
being a square aspect between the sun and Saturn. And that Saturn is moving through your 2nd house, which is the area of resources, money, but really self-worth. Thinking about how that connection between your money and resources and your self-esteem, your self-worth. So there's something in that may be causing you to not feel quite so free about giving of yourself.
Yeah, there's something, Saturn is asking you to take responsibility. I mean, Saturn's a planet of responsibility and accountability here. And I think there's something about, you know, the lesson around the deeper layers of how you value yourself. And as you work with those, and you also have to bring in the idea of compassion. You've got Pisces here. You've got to be compassionate towards yourself. This is not an easy task. Compassion towards yourself is one of the hardest spiritual paths. By the way, there's tons of resources out there for this. If you want to look up Sharon Salzberg as a meditation instructor always talking about self-compassion. But so that's going to be an important thing to work with. And with Saturn here, it's kind of saying, hey, you need to take responsibility for developing more self-compassion. And that's going to be the way to completely liberate yourself, to give of yourself freely without concern, you know, without concern that there's some problem or issue, or you can't afford it, or you can't, you know, somehow you're giving something up. This is a great time to kind of work with those issues. Could be extremely liberating. So,
Yeah, it's so interesting to think about that. You know, your self-worth somehow holding you back from giving of yourself. Or like you said, you might feel like, well, I would give of myself, but I can't afford it. I mean, that would be a way that this could show up. But it's really, you know, looking at your connection with your self-worth, your connection with money and resources as a teacher. You know, you don't have to have money to give of yourself. You do have to have enough of a self-compassion, self-valuing to be able to give of yourself. So this is a lot of what you're learning, you know, over the next few years, as Saturn works its way through that 2nd house, you're going to be learning an awful lot about that connection between money, resources, and self-worth.
mm. Yeah, I think it's an important time. So
Yeah, it is indeed. So do the work. I look at this, I think, well, maybe one way to really work with this is to really get clear about where you could give of yourself financially that would build your self-esteem. Maybe if you donated $50 a month to a particular organization, a particular something, that would really help, because there's some effort that has to be made here between your self-worth and your ability to give of yourself.
yeah, I like you brought that up because there's so much going on in the world right now, and there's so many different organizations that need help. And I think that is that could be really interesting because it is really stressful kind of knowing all these things are going on and not having any idea what to do about it. But if you were able to kind of go, you know what, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to donate, like you said, like $50 towards this organization that's helping clean plastic out of the oceans. I mean, that it actually gives you this sense of like, okay, I'm doing what I can as an individual to participate.
Yeah.
So it's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that before. So thanks for
Yeah,
bringing
I think that's really important. And if you can't afford $50, $5.
right. I
And
know.
if you can't settle on a particular thing that kind of comes to the top of your mind of what would make you feel good, well, make it $5 to this organization this month and $5 to some another month. Just do it consistently will really, really build your self-worth. I think that's going to be an important piece. Okay.
Interesting. Cool.
I think
All right.
we're going to move on now. And for those of you with Pisces rising, your attention, your curiosity, the warmth and light of the sun is moving into your fourth house. So you're really, really aware of your family, your home.
Yeah, and it's interesting too how, Mars retrograded through that fourth house for months, all the way from August till March recently. So that area of life about your family has gotten a lot of attention. And now the sun just kind of brings some warmth in there and lets you sort of see like, well, what did change? What does feel better now? How's the story different than what was going on before? And if you have kids, I mean, it might just be they're growing up. They're as kids, they grow so quickly. It's just interesting to think about that. And at the same moment, there's a challenge being issued from Saturn. Saturn is in your first house. So Saturn in your first house, I mean, this is a major teaching. I mean, Saturn is this teacher planet, and it teaches through gosh, in a lot of ways, limitation. It kind of forces you to feel like what is reality and look at that. So I think you're being asked to look at limitations, and what is your self-image? What is your self-development that has to do with Pisces, and how is that being challenged?
Yeah, I think about Saturn moving through that first house. It'll be there for about 3 years. And we talked a lot when we did the video about Saturn, and I'd encourage you to really go back and look at that video and listen to the part for Pisces rising, because this is so important with Saturn moving through Pisces. But Saturn is really about structuring. The limitations are for the purpose of developing structure to contain something. And it's Pisces. What are we trying to contain? We're trying to contain and structure the magic of Pisces. So this is really learning about who you are as a magical, compassionate being in the world, because that's who you are with Pisces rising. You are a magical, compassionate person. And you're learning how to do that. And some limitations may have to, hold you back, because that compassion and magic can kind of spill out and not really accomplish anything. So Saturn is really supporting you in structuring that. And in some way, that job of structuring that is challenging your being as light and friendly and Gemini chatty around your home and family. Maybe you are structuring something about yourself and your family doesn't really like it, or it's creating some difficulty in the family. And what I think of, and I'm not saying this is what's happening with you, but what I think of is how people who there's all that conversation around, people with drug or alcohol issues. When they quit and go clean, the family often doesn't know how to navigate the new you. In some way, there's some new way that you are trying to structure and be in your life that your family is having a challenge adjusting to.
Interesting. Yeah, I was thinking that what Saturn's really getting at is it's getting you to look at what really matters. And with this square, it's sort of saying what really matters about how you are in your home life. Like, what is the most important thing? There's something about that is because Gemini can be so scattered and all over the place. And Saturn's just sort of going, shoop, get in what really matters about your family and how you interact with them, kind of getting at the heart of the issue.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's really interesting. And, just for those of you with Pisces rising, just know that over these next few years, you are going to be really building yourself up in a beautiful way, really structuring that magic of who you are. Okay.
I love it.
I think we're done.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Let's see here. All right. Thank you, everyone who has listened. And we'll be making another video about, I don't know what, but something soon.
Very soon. A new moon.
All right. Yes.
Right.
Oh, yes. That's right. The new moon. Okay. Thank you, Jennie. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, Laurie. Okay. Bye.